Well, here we are. We have finally reached the point where, after months of mitigation hearings and with residents and negotiations with Suffolk Downs, the city now has a host community agreement. And now we're heading for the next milestone, a citywide referendum where you, the voters, will get to vote on what is probably the most important issue facing this city in our lifetime. There's a lot at stake and a lot to understand in making that decision, and processing all that information involved in order to reach an informed decision can be a little overwhelming at times. So the mayor, with his team, have put together a series of roundtable discussions to help us all understand the various pieces of this issue. First up, we're going to have a conversation with Mayor Dan Rizzo and Economic Development Director John Festa discussing the host community agreement and what it means to the city. Following them, we're going to have a discussion with the mayor and Suffolk Downs COO about jobs, the impact to the city, businesses, and the casino development plans. Third up, we have a roundtable discussion about transportation and traffic improvements with Frank Stringy and a few other people. Following the transportation traffic discussion, we'll also discuss public safety aspects with Police Chief Joe Caffarelli, Fire Chief Dean Doherty, and Suffolk Downs Head of Security Paul Evans. And then last, but certainly not least, we'll talk with State Representative Kathy Ann Reinstein and Senator Anthony Petrocelli about the state gambling legislation, how it's been organized, and how the Gambling Commission will decide which of the three applications will be approved. As you can see, there's a lot of information to absorb, and you may not be able to absorb it in one take. So stay tuned to Revere TV, where we'll be rerunning these discussions throughout the month, leading right up to the referendum on November 5th. Okay, so let's get started. And to my left, I'd like to introduce Mayor Dan Rizzo. Of course, everybody knows, and sitting next to Dan, also everybody knows, is Economic Development Director John Festa. And let's start talking about the Host Community Agreement, or the HCA, I think a lot of people refer to it as. Dan, any opening comments that you'd like to make?
Well, first off, Ed, I'd like to get it right out that I am very grateful to you and Revere TV for allowing us this opportunity to host these roundtables, or to hold these roundtables, because I think it's important, particularly now as the election is getting closer. This is a big, big vote for our community, and the more informed they are, I think the more favorable that they're going to view this particular project, because there are so many things that are in this host community agreement that will benefit our community, benefit our local economy, put people to work, generate a revenue stream like we've never seen before and potentially never will see again. So this is a very, very important vote. And it's really, I think, a tribute to you and Revere TV that you're allowing us this opportunity. So,
and I think it's so important. And John, you made a point in a conversation we had about a friend of yours that you were talking to, who talked about three issues relative to the host community agreement. Mm-hmm. And when you heard from him what they were, you found out, well, no, he had it all wrong. And so it's important that we do these things. You want to talk about that?
Absolutely. I had a dear friend call me and talk about some of the issues in the mitigation package. And he talked about 3 bullet points. And I stopped him and I said those are incorrect. And then when I ended up going through the mitigation agreement, he was extremely happy. So the point being is that there's been a lot of misinformation, and that's why I'm so glad that I'm here with Mayor Rizzo, and you're affording us the opportunity to do this, because we really do want to educate the people in the city of Revere to look at the package, see the substance of it, because it's a very, very lucrative package that we're all extremely proud of.
Yeah. Well, let's get down to the details. And you know, there's been a lot discussed about how much the city will get from the mitigation agreement. And, you know, of course, it's all based on how much the casino can make, and it could be up to $1 billion or $800 million, whatever the case may be. But at a minimum, the city's going to get $126 million. Is that correct? I mean, there's no debate about that.
There's absolutely no debate on that.
Yep.
The minimum criteria that we're going to get is $126.5 million.
Mm-hmm.
That's if Suffolk Downs is doing well or if they're doing poorly. And we think that we're very excited that this is a destination that's going to do extremely well. But the minimum, and there's a whole, I'm sure we're going to get into it, how we determine that value, but
Mm-hmm.
we're going to get the minimum is $126.5 million over the 15-year life of the contract.
Yeah.
and if I could just follow up on that, Ed, as John alluded to, and that is a minimum number. We thought that it was important to the community to set a minimum floor that the city would receive over the life of the agreement. And but we didn't want to limit the upside. So assuming that Suffolk Downs hits their numbers, which is $1 billion, and by the way, there have been several studies out there that have shown that there's over $3 billion in the Massachusetts market that is really up for grabs amongst 3 licenses that they're going to give out. So simple math says $3 billion divided by 3, and you'd have to think that Boston, of all the areas of you know, the South Shore and Springfield, should at least get their fair share. So if they were to achieve that $1 billion number, the city would receive $15 million on $1 billion, and that continues to escalate. So they're really, when I can't overstate what it means to our community and what it will do what it will do for our city. Really, I mean, this is a generational type of change. This is not something that's a good project for this year, next year, or the year after. This is really transformational for our community. And, you know, some people are asking about, I see these no signs, and what's all these no signs? You know, I mean, there's obviously, with this much money at stake, you have surrounding communities that would love the casino in their backyard. So they're doing all they can to urge our voters not to vote for it. And quite honestly, that's because they know that our plan, or Suffolk Downs, their plan, is going to be far superior. I mean, when you look at the applicants that are currently in play for the license, Suffolk Downs has 4 times the land of any applicant out there. They currently have an existing racetrack that in the legislation gives, I mean, that's a leg up per the legislation when the Gaming Commission makes their decision. So they know that their only chance really to stop Suffolk Downs is by working through our residents and through our voters. But
you know, you bring up a valid point. You know, there are people with legitimate concerns and legitimate issues. They just don't like gambling and have some concerns about it. But then there are people out there who have vested interests in seeing it defeated, and it's worth knowing, and people should know, you know, who's behind some of those signs and who's behind some of those efforts, because there's big money at stake for some of those people. Yeah.
Oh, there's no question about it. And as I say, this is a pure act of desperation. And you know, I think by doing these roundtables, and the more we talk to people, and John just alluded to the fact that, you know, having one phone conversation with somebody that wasn't clear on what was in the agreement turned him into a supporter. And I think I'm finding that, counselors I talk to are finding that. You know, there's people out here that try to bend the numbers and twist things around, but bottom line, no matter what, the floor that we're going to get is, you know, the $126.5 million. So whether, you know, you've got some people saying, well, these numbers, you know, we don't think they're going to reach their benchmarks. It's irrelevant.
And that was my point earlier. It's a minimum, and that's not something to sneeze at.
No.
John.
And quite honestly, Ed, we looked at these numbers, and we were very conservative in putting these numbers together, and the minimum number is very lucrative. But we feel that the realistic projection on this is going to be $209.5 million. We feel that it's you know, that Suffolk will be able to hit that goal. But getting back for a second, you mentioned something about, you know, people being against this or whatnot. We respect the fact that people are against the casino, but we want to make sure, the mayor and I and our economic development team, we educate the people, because as the mayor stated, when they see the facts, what the facts are, and then they become aware of, we're telling them the exact figures, we're telling them the reality of it. And we want to make sure that whether they're for it or against it, at least they know, and they're more informed to make an educated decision. And that's our job, because we truly feel that by educating the people with what is in this agreement, if you are on the borderline in terms of whether you're for or against, there's no question that we have the best site, we have the best package, and I think it gives the people a chance to be more informed.
And it's worth bringing up the fact, I mean, we're doing these roundtable discussions today with a number of people, but you have two other meetings coming up, I think one at City Hall and one at the Senior Center. You want to talk about those a little?
Yeah, basically, we're just going to lay out the host community agreement similar to what we did at the City Council meeting back a couple weeks ago. Just to run through it, talk about all the highlights of the agreement, answer any questions that people might have. It's a relatively lengthy agreement, and maybe some parts of it are hard to understand. So, again, we have been, from the very, very beginning, when this whole process started, after the legislation passed in November of 2011, right? Mm-hmm. 2011. Almost 2 years ago, we have been trying to be as open as we possibly can with our residents and our other elected officials by holding meeting after meeting after meeting to get people's input, to get people's feedback, to be as inclusive as we possibly could. Because at the end of the day, as I said before, this is an agreement that's going to carry long after, probably long after, I don't mean to speak for John, but long after I'm gone, it's going to continue on. And, so we want to make sure that the residents of our city had all the input that they possibly could when we put it all together. So, and this is just a continuation of that.
So going back to some of the details, as we said, starting off a minimum of $126.5 million. John, you talked about the payment process, when the first payments come into the city, and you want to talk about that a little bit. When will people start seeing, or the city start seeing money from this agreement?
The first payment would be July of 2014. That's fiscal year 15, and then the following payment, the next payment will be due May of the following year, which would be fiscal year 16. Okay, and how we determine that is our economic development team sat down with our city treasurer, George Anzoni, and we really structured on how the payments would benefit the city in general. So those are the payments that are going to occur immediately, and they're going to continue until they open. We feel that they'll be open within a certain time frame. So we worked it back, getting a good idea in terms of the construction schedule once they get granted the license, and to put the city in good financial shape.
So and it's probably worth making the point, if I understand correctly, I mean, 2014, the doors won't even be open then, but yet we're still getting money from the casino.
That's correct. Yeah. That's correct. One of the great things about this package that the mayor has done is that we're getting upfront money. A lot of the other packages throughout the Commonwealth, the Everett deal, they're not getting upfront money. They're getting money when things are actually constructed. Once that license gets granted, we are going to get a payment. So we felt that it's a fiscal stability, so to speak. We wanted to make sure that we have the monies in hand, we're progressing, we have the availability to do some wonderful things, and that was our concern, and that's why people. That's one of the things that we are so happy about is that we're getting all this upfront money, and we're going to continue that. And then when they're operational, we feel that it's going to be a boom, and it'll be extremely lucrative for the city of Revere.
Yeah, and then starting in 2017, again, it's a minimum of $4 million, but it ramps up as the time goes on for 15 years, roughly.
Yes, that's correct. It ramps up by certain percentages, 1% the first year, 1.25% the second and third year, the fourth year, and all the way up goes to 1.5% based upon the gross gaming revenues.
Okay.
Well, it's a minimum of $9 million.
A minimum of $9 million.
Minimum of $9 million.
That's right.
That's correct. Yeah. Minimum of 9, and then if it goes to 1.25 billion, it goes to 1.75% of the gross gaming revenues, and if it goes to 1.5 billion, it goes to 2%. Mm-hmm. So
and that which should be $30 million annually to the city. Now, something that I just want to mention that I think is important, and again, there's some people I can understand people being against. I don't like gaming, okay? I don't want any gambling. But to talk about the fact that Revere isn't getting their fair share and all this other type of stuff is completely off base because, listen, we don't have control over the geography at Suffolk Downs. The building itself, the structures being built are all in Boston. They're all in East Boston. Of course, if the buildings were being built in Revere, we would be getting the same type of thing, property taxes, or in their case, a pilot, which is payments in lieu of taxes. They're getting what, you know, in pilot payments, if you take the pilot payment out, we're right on par, I'd say even better than where Boston's at with their agreement. So, you know, again, if you're philosophically against gaming, it's one thing, but to not support this because you think Revere didn't do well, I mean, we essentially are getting all these millions of dollars for the, I guess, for allowing them to use our parking lot that we have there on the Suffolk Downs site that sits in Revere. We own, or the city of Revere actually has about 28%, and the rest of it is in East Boston. So, you know, we feel as though this agreement is just such a positive thing for the city, and with so many possibilities down the road, because when they expand, they can only expand into Revere, and then, as John said, a lot of the collateral development that we're going to get from this is that we're already seeing. I mean, we have, you know, John comes into my office with potential developers, hotel developers. It seems almost weekly. So there's a lot of good things that could come about as a result of this project acting as a catalyst.
Yeah, you know, John, it's interesting. You know, I had a conversation with somebody down the beach one time, and he drew a line in the sand, and he basically said, "Put your toes on that line," and I did. And he says, "You and 1,000 other people are waiting to jump over that line as soon as the host agreement is signed and the gambling commission approves the casino." So and basically his point was the roof is just going to blow right off on the development.
Without question. There's a number of developers that are coming in across the country from all over, looking at Revere Beach, looking in and around the Suffolk Downs area. We're constantly bringing in developers to meet with the mayor. So there's a lot of people on the outskirts looking to invest in this city very soon.
Yeah. So getting back to the host community agreement itself and some of the details. So we talked about the $126 million. We're going to start getting $4 million in 2014, going on from there up to $9 million at points in times throughout, you know, the rest of the 15 years. In addition to that, the city still gets its $340,000 in taxes every year, yeah? And that could change at time, go up actually, would it?
Oh, absolutely. It's going to go up, you know, through a normal valuation process. So that's something we're always going to get. These payments that we're receiving through the host community agreement is not in the form of a pilot. These are pure impact payments that we're getting that, you know, courtesy of the legislature and this legislation, we were allowed to negotiate with them. So, you know, if this was ever, and I try to tell people this, if this was, you know, let's say a Square One mall that they were just going to drop in the middle of Suffolk Downs, they were going to knock the track down and put a Square One mall in.
That could potentially happen if this doesn't go through.
It absolutely could potentially happen, but guess what? You know, the traffic that people are worried about at 10,000 cars a day that they're estimating, Square One mall gets 12,000 cars a day. So they're going to get the same traffic, but we're not going to get the $50 million of infrastructure work that Suffolk Downs is going to be required to do. We're not going to certainly see any of these type of millions of dollars through the host community agreement, because there will be no host community agreement. There will be no local investment into the economy, and you know, we'll continue to receive that $340,000 and normal uptick in that, but we will have no say as to what goes on there, as opposed to this project that has so much upside and will act so much more as a catalyst for future development than any Square One mall possibly could. So, yeah, I mean, you know, this is, you know, as I think about it and I started to process it early on, you know, as magnificent of a project as this is, and you know, on such a scale that you know, with the hotels that they're building and all the you know, 2,200 trees they're planting, and it's, you know, it takes away any negative project that otherwise could go there or really offer the city nowhere near as much of a addition to our tax rolls as this project
As this
could.
will do.
Yeah.
Another point, John, did you have a...
No, just a quick comment on that. When you talk about property taxes. Not only are the property taxes going to increase at the Suffolk Downs area, but we also looked at a projection where if another hotel goes in on the Phase 2 development on the Revere side, or if it goes into the particular project where the Shaw site might be, or in and around that area, you know, roughly a $45 million investment in a hotel brings in about $1.4 million in tax revenue. So it's going to be substantial. Yeah. It's going to increase our tax base.
Say that number again.
About a $45 million investment brings in about $1.4 million in tax revenue per year.
Versus what we're getting now? 340,000.
A little bit different. Just a little bit different.
A little different, yes.
And Ed, can I just add something in there, because I don't think we talk about this enough, and I think it's on people's minds. And I've had this conversation with John, and we don't talk about it enough. You know, it's great to get these tax revenues in, but we're not doing it just to create a big bank account for the city. Mm-hmm. We're doing it to provide services. We're doing it to provide tax relief for people. We're doing it to help maybe offset these increasing water and sewer rates. So there's a lot of different areas where this money will be spent. You know, it's not, you know, like I've heard people say, well, I don't really care about Little League fields. You know, I don't have any kids. Okay, you don't have to, you know, maybe that's not important to you. But is tax relief important? Is maybe controlling or you know, possibly lowering your water sewer rates important to you? Like, these are things that we have set for ourselves as goals with this mitigation money. It's not going to happen in the first year or two, but as we get up, as we ramp up, like the casino ramps up, it's going to give us that opportunity to now start looking, hey, you know, all this extra development, all these extra millions of dollars coming in, this has to be some payback for our residents.
Sure. And I want to get into a little bit of those issues and those components, if you will, in a second. But before we get there, there is another misconception I think that's out there, and I've heard it from a couple of other people, and maybe it was one of the ones that your friend brought up, and that's the $2 million that's going towards the Harry Della Russo Stadium and the youth center. Is that coming out of the mitigation, the $126 million of mitigation money?
That's in addition.
Please talk about that.
The $126.5 million mitigation, that's mitigation dollars. The $2 million for Harry Della Russo Stadium and the $1 million for the youth center is additional. And that's one thing we wanted to clarify, because people think that it's within the mitigation agreement.
Exactly.
And that's above and beyond. So that's one of the line items that we felt we were very excited about, because we can provide, you know, a new facility and a new stadium. So that's when I keep saying that the package is so lucrative, is because these are additional dollars that we're going to be receiving, and we can do a lot of good things with it.
Yeah, you know, so I thought that was an important thing to clear up at that point. Yeah.
Sure.
All right, so going back to how the city plans to use the money, because that, again, is the other big question out there. $126 million, oh, that's really great, but what's the city going to do with this money? We had all the mitigation hearings, heard a lot of ideas from people, so people are saying, well, I still haven't heard exactly how we're going to use this money and how it's going to be allocated. You want to talk about that?
Well, okay, let me just start off by saying that when I was a city councilor, I actually submitted an ordinance via a motion on the city council that passed unanimously that says that gaming revenues, any gaming revenues that the city derives through expanded gaming, 50% of those revenues would go into a capital improvement account for capital improvement projects. That was so that the city, if expanded gaming were to ever come into be, would not be hiring people, and then if the casino ever fell on hard times, have to go through layoffs, and probably worse than that, not see any direct investment into the community as a result of an expanded gaming bill. So 50% of all those revenues will be earmarked for capital improvement projects. And John can probably talk about some of the capital improvement projects that, you know, we're looking at largely as a result of talking with our residents and analyzing the city's needs. But and the other half will go towards services, you know, services that, you know, we also heard from residents that people would like to see. There are certainly positions in City Hall that haven't been filled for a long time that could provide services to the public when they come to City Hall, or, you know, we know we've got a short-staffed DPW. We know that public safety, we want to get our numbers back up to where they were. So, but I'll let John talk about some of the capital improvements, if that's okay.
Absolutely. You know, one of the things we talked about, Ed, was when we had the series of meeting that the mayor called upon. What we did is we took those ideas and thoughts, and we determined our minimum values based upon a number of those series of meetings. Matter of fact, I had one with you, which was very, very helpful. So we determined our minimum numbers, and then we were a little bit more aggressive on trying to see what we can do for the city. But in terms of like some of the projects on our bonding, you know, there's a number of things that we try to hit upon, you know, senior programs or a senior building, a DPW facility possibility, to review a library, the new water meters. There's a number of different things that we can spend the money on. There's so many that I'm just to name a few, but we determine our minimum criteria based upon those series of meetings so that we could immediately have an impact. And, you know, we've been hearing, you know, we wanted to make sure that we touched upon education, seniors, youth programs, parks, and playgrounds, that we want to try to have new parks and playgrounds for our youth. So these are the things that the mayor has instructed us to really look upon and focus on our number, so that when we did get this number, we'll be able to do these wonderful things in the city review. And we really can. That's why we're excited about this, because we have the dollars to be able to invest and improve the city for all branches, whether you're a senior, whether you're a young adult, and to have this opportunity. So I think it's going to be a situation where, you know, when the money starts coming in, it will be on a gradual basis, but it will be well thought out from the mayor and the city council, and then we can implement these ideas.
If I could,
Sure. Go ahead.
So, you know, as John said, this is going to be, there's something in it for everybody. There's, you know, there's parks and playgrounds, as he said. We plan on investing in after-school programs. We're certainly going to undertake a new youth center with that $1 million of seed money that they're giving us. With respect to senior services, I mean, it's embarrassing that this city has had to put a van out of service, thereby offering no transportation to seniors to get them back and forth to the senior center in this day and age. This will give us the money to ensure that never happens again, that we'll have adequate transportation for seniors, that will actually provide services and programming for seniors that so many really rely and depend upon. In between, you know, for us, we're going to see new infrastructure work, new sidewalks, new roadways. I hear people say, geez, my street hasn't been done in 35 years. Well, that's because we're limited financially, but this will give us the opportunity now to respond to the needs of the, you know, normal working, you know, family, middle-age, you know, people that just want basic city services. So there really is something in this agreement for everybody.
And we clearly hear, as the mayor stated, you know, there's something in this agreement for everyone, including revitalization of Broadway, to name another issue. So there's so many different things, and we do hear very clearly for people about tax relief, stabilization of taxes and water rates and things of that nature. So we hear about that, and the mayor has made it clear that that's, you know, that's two issues that are kind of a priority in focusing, and we know that people aren't fixed income. So when this money does come in, I think no question in our minds that it's going to be spent properly to be able to have, whether it's the seniors or whether it's just a new homeowner, to be able to have stability and to be able to feel comfortable.
Yeah, and I think we've had conversations in the past about it in terms of using that money to make a difference in people's everyday lives.
Correct.
An improvement in their everyday lives, and that's what's going to be important in terms of people understanding and at some point getting to the point where they approve this.
Absolutely. And you know, I know you'll be hosting a roundtable that centers around public safety, but you know, you put another 10 or 15 police officers out in the street, that has direct benefit on people's lives. People concerned about crime, people concerned about you know, neighborhood issues. This is going to give Chief Caffarelli the resources he needs to respond quickly and more effectively. And the same thing with the fire department. Obviously, you know, when you dial 911, you've got some sort of a medical emergency, or God forbid, a fire or some other problem that requires their attention. You want the fire department to respond as quickly as they can. I know that they're not manned to the level that they should be. We have a Point of Pines fire station that's been closed for many years now. You've got a fire station sitting in Beachmont that, while the new fire station isn't too far away, I know there's still some concern up there. So these are things that I'll be sitting down with the chief and discussing over time as to where he thinks his resources or our resources would be best spent.
Yeah, and go ahead, John.
One other thing, as the mayor stated, when we were having these series of meetings, like I stated earlier with you, Ed, the mayor and I sat down with the police chief and the fire chief to determine what their needs are, and that's incorporated in this host agreement. So I want to be very clear when it comes to, when I hear people talk about public safety, and that's a big concern of people, but we addressed those issues with the police chief and the fire chief and made sure that those dollars are within this agreement. So we'll be able to provide the services necessary to make people feel comfortable that it will not be, it won't be an increase in crime and things of that nature. We have the monies available to offset any of that.
And that leads to what my next question was. Perfect. And that had to do with public safety. And yes, we'll be talking with the chief, the two chiefs, and Paul Evans from Suffolk Downs later on about some of the specifics in public safety. But relative to the use of monies, so you figure there's going to need to be more policing force, and there's going to need to be more fire support, and of course, from Suffolk Downs, they'll have their own support. But how do you plan to use that money to, if you will, beef up the police and fire services, and what forms might that take? For example, will we see substations in Beachmont and maybe Shirley Ave to head off, crime that is likely to rise in those areas as a result of the casino?
Well, we don't have specific plans for additional substations, though that's obviously on the table, and I would defer to the chief on issues like that. But I just want to backtrack a little, and again, you'll be getting into this later on, but I don't necessarily think, and a lot of people just assume that because there's a casino, there's going to be crime.
Go ahead.
And there is not a study out there that anyone has been able to present that can correlate crime with a casino. In other words, there's no study that shows that crime increases as a result of a casino. And I can completely understand why. I mean, it is going to be in the best interest of Suffolk Downs to minimize crime as much as they possibly can. They want to be profitable. They're not going to be profitable if they have a bunch of criminals running around inside or near their facility. So in addition to their own security force, there's going to be a memorandum of understanding that's signed between Boston Police, State Police, and Revere Police, where they'll all have joint jurisdiction. People will get tired of seeing police, is my guess. Yep. And but as far as the staffing levels go, the staffing levels will go up. Both the chief of the fire department and police department have requested their numbers to go up. I think they each requested, 15 additional
15 to 20.
complement of people. And that will happen. We're not going to be able to immediately start hiring police and fire, though, on this first $4 million payment. We're going to have to wait until things ramp up and we start getting that minimum $9 million. But at the same time, there'll only be construction work going on during that phase anyway.
When the doors open up is when you're going to need those services.
That's correct.
Exactly.
Yeah. And one other thing, when the mayor's talking about, he's absolutely correct. There's not a study out there that says that crime will increase because of a casino. But the uniqueness of this particular resort-style casino, this is not going to be like Las Vegas in the sense that there's numerous casinos. This is one casino. There's going to be so much scrutiny from within Suffolk Downs itself, from the state, from us, that it's going to be looked at quite closely. And as the mayor stated, there's going to be police officers not only from Suffolk's perspective, but from our perspective, in and around that area, making sure that it's safe, because Suffolk Downs they want people to come to their casino to be able to enjoy it and have a safe, quiet environment. And I agree with the mayor when he says that, in terms of what we're going to do with the dollars, in terms of public safety, we should leave that up to the police chief and the fire chief to determine what their needs are. They're the experts in that particular field. We should take their recommendations and see what their needs are and then allocate the appropriate funds.
By all means, and the question was basically, are you going to use the money to support those needs?
Absolutely.
And I'm sure they're going to be as careful as possible. And and maybe to go back to the whole thing about crime, and I guess it's the potential for crime increase, in those areas, and it's allocating the resources to head off that potential. And to your point, they're going to do everything they can to head off that potential for crime. One of the differences with this casino versus some of the other ones is that it is in an urban setting. Right. It's a lot easier for people to get to, and to some extent a lot easier for the bad element to get to, and that's where people's concerns about crime and the increase in crime come about. And so,
well, I hear Ed, people bring up Atlantic City, for example. Yep. And, they talk about on the outskirts of Atlantic City how it's kind of a rundown, somewhat crime-ridden area. But I think people have to remember, those casinos were built after this area was identified as a crime-ridden area. It didn't happen as a result of the casinos. They put those casinos in there hoping that that would elevate that area. And unfortunately, for whatever reason, it didn't. But that's New Jersey. This is Massachusetts. And as John said, they've got multiple casinos there. We have one. So, I think the danger of any negative impacts are going to be so quickly identified and so quickly dealt with that, I think people should be very, very comfortable in knowing that public safety is being addressed and will be addressed throughout the life of this agreement.
And that's the key. I mean, we'll talk more with the chiefs later on about that, and the fact that monies are being allocated says, right. Hey, you're doing everything you can with the money you're getting to head off this issue.
Absolutely.
Going back to taxes, you talked a little bit about taxes earlier, and again, that's another big question on people's minds. Some people have said, hey, we should be using that to lower the tax rate within the city. You want to talk a little bit about that? You already addressed it a little bit, but.
Oh, sure. I mean, the more, and we've been talking about this, the city's been talking about this, the city council's been talking about this for a long, long time, and that is, how do we elevate our commercial tax base? Because the only chance this city has to control or lower our residential taxes is by increasing our commercial taxes. So this project is not going to spur any additional residential developments, residential building. It's going to spur, as John has alluded to, several hotel proposals. Probably, we've met with some restaurateurs that want to locate here in the city. So we're looking at really commercial development as a way to offset any type of rising residential taxes. And as that starts to take shape, we will absolutely be able to shift the residential tax burden over to the commercial tax base, because we'll have more of a tax base to put it on. So can I sit here and tell you right now, oh, by the way, everyone's taxes are going to go down $500 a year? I can't say that. But at the same time, I can tell you that tax relief is a priority for us. And it's not only a priority, it will become a reality once we start to get these regular payments of the floor, which is the $9 million. We'll have more. We'll be able to meet our public safety needs as well as providing tax relief and meet any of our capital improvement needs once we hit that level. So there's a lot of different moving parts in this, but for this agreement, none of this is possible. Mm-hmm. So that really is the goal here, is that, on November 5th, people need to take all these factors into consideration and vote for this proposal, because as I say, this all sounds good as we're talking about it, and this extra public safety and all this development and all this extra revenues and capital improvement projects and tax relief. It is not going to happen if people don't come out on November 5th and vote for it.
Okay. Getting down to, and you did bring up one other one, and I think it's important to bring up, and that's education. And there's been discussion about the impact of this casino, this agreement, and the money coming into the city on how much the city will get for education funds. I think that's been debunked, if you will, but I think it's worth probably talking about once again. And also, what is in this package for the school department?
Well, go ahead, John. I'll let you answer that.
What we did right from the very beginning is we met with Superintendent Dakin and the school committee to get their thoughts and ideas on what they thought the funding should be in terms of allocation of monies from mitigation dollars to the education system. So within this structure, within this agreement, we have the dollar figures that I think that the superintendent and that the school committee is looking for. The question comes about is, like the mayor stated, this is going to be, our goal was to get as much money as possible for certain criteria, and education is a key component of that. Now, there's going to be a time when I believe, we feel it's essential that, we spend the dollars necessary to be able to have dollars going to the education system of our kids, and that will be there. It's just a matter of, we didn't do it on a line item basis. I think that the school committee might have wanted it in a particular line item, but what we did is we put it in the generalization form. And what I mean by that, and I want to be clear, is that the monies are in here of what they were looking for. It's just that if the monies, for an example, if there's a greater need or less of a need, there's going to be some flexibility there. And that will be from the mayor and the city council to be able to allocate the monies that they're looking for. But the monies will be there to satisfy the concerns, and I want to clearly state that, the concerns of what they were looking for in terms of dollars. Okay?
Yeah, just to, I guess, add on to what John just said, there was some concern about the city potentially being impacted by Chapter 70 cuts. Right. And that I have been, because that concerned me, obviously. But I have been in contact with Roger Hatch from DESE, and he sent me an email that essentially said that a mitigation package or a host community agreement would not have any impact on our Chapter 70. The Chapter 70 money is derived based on certain demographics, income levels, geography, stuff like that. So this agreement will have no impact on that.
Okay. All right, great. Well, I think that about wraps it up for this session. I think we're going to be talking with Chip Tuttle coming up next. And any closing comments or remarks you want to go first?
Okay. I just want to state, first of all, again, I want to thank Revere TV and you for having us here to be able to educate people in the city of Revere. Obviously, we're entrenched in this. We know the agreement well. And we're just so excited about it that, I'm looking forward to these public hearings to be able to answer any and all concerns that the people in the city of Revere have, because the mayor and our economic development team put numerous hours in developing this, and we're so excited about it because it is a contract that it would be transformational in the city of Revere. So we're looking forward to the public meetings, and I want to thank you for giving us the opportunity to do so.
It's my pleasure. Dan?
I just want to once again echo the sentiments of John. I want to thank you and Revere TV for allowing us this opportunity, and I really can't emphasize enough how important that this vote is on November 5th to the future of our community. I've heard people say they don't want to hang the future of our city on a casino, and nor do I. But at the same time, if you're this close, after working 2 years on a project that's going to bring in so many millions of dollars, create so many jobs, invest so many millions of dollars into our local economy, it's a very, very important project to me and our administration. So I'm hoping that that people will come out on November 5th and show their support, similar to what they did in Everett. 86.5% of the people voted for that proposal. So I'm hoping that we can at least meet that number or exceed it.
And just not to drag on, but interesting about that 86, and there was an 86% approval of the people that voted, but when you looked at the numbers, there was only 5% roughly of Everett that actually voted. We want to see a lot more than that coming up here in Revere.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So, well, there you have it for this session.